welcome to the channel. Yeah, do it yourself, semi.
Hey yo, DIY semi. Come on, won't you let me help you simplify what your life needs? Hey yo, DIY semi. Come on, won't you let me help you make a profit in life? Yeah, we gon' break it down, break it down. Come on, make a profit, break it down, break it down. Simplify, don't stop it, break it down, break it down. Come on, make a profit, break it down, break it down. Simplify, don't stop it, hey.
All right, we are here.
Yeah. What up?
Thanks everybody for coming in. So you're on the road, you're trucking down the road, bored out of your mind. Why not listen to an audiobook? Why not read a book at night in your sleeper?
That's
Something
a great
productive.
idea.
And then we'll get together and talk about it afterwards. So this is Snorelord, the metalhead Viking caveman trucker guy.
Hi.
And every once in a while, we read a book or something, and then we talk about it. So thanks for coming in today, and tell us about the book we got for today.
Well, today we have The Hacking of the American Mind by Dr. Robert Lustig. And it's been an eye-opening experience. We can do the good, the bad, the ugly.
Let's do all of it.
And it's not for the faint at heart. If you're nerdy and you like numbers, it can attract you a little bit. If you are not so into that, it might be a hard listen to for a while, but then it kind of closes. So anybody who's not familiar with Robert Lustig, he has done a couple of books. He did a book about sugar, about how basically he talks about the Coca-Cola conspiracy. He's a pediatric. He's a kid doctor.
Endocrinologist.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Is what he specializes. So if a child had obesity issues, they would figure out what the root was, and they figured out that there was a correlation in the brain and the endocrine system, and so
Sorry.
that led him down a rabbit hole, and he discovered a few things. The name of his first book was Fat Chance.
Okay.
I have not read that yet. I've got that in the queue. But essentially, if we're going to summarize it, another name for this book could be called "How Corporate Predators Use and Manipulate Brain Chemistry to Increase Profits While Ruining American Health." And so that's intriguing. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I got something to say about. Well, first, I put a link, an Amazon link to the book in the chat. If anybody's interested, you don't have to buy it there, but if you want to go click that link to just read about the book and see if you want to buy it, and then get it wherever you damn well please, or do yourself a favor, get yourself an Audible subscription. If you're driving truck, just get yourself an Audible subscription. So you talk about corporate raiders, and so. One thing I liked this book, and I didn't like it all at the same time. Like I liked the book. I don't think I liked the guy that wrote it. He later on in the book he gets political, and I don't necessarily agree with his politics. But whatever, I can set that aside and still take the book for what it is. About the corporate raiders thing, he mentioned that a lot. He didn't really call them corporate raiders, but he kept saying big corporations are doing this and corporations are doing that. And I kind of take exception with that, because it just saying, oh, corporations bad, this and that. Yeah, it teaches just tribalism, like we're one team and they're another. A corporation is just a file folder in a drawer. It doesn't have a soul. It has no person. People do bad things, right?
Yeah.
Corporations have no will one way or the other. It's what the people do with them. So, I don't want to just sit here and say, yes, evil corporations. Well, a corporation isn't good or evil. It's the people that run it. And we need to hold those people accountable, right? Like with everything, because otherwise it's just teaching us to be one against the other. And we can change. You could take a corporation that's doing evil things and turn them to doing good things. It just takes a different set of people running the show. So
Right.
you hear that theme a lot in the book, that it's all the blame lies to the corporations, and to a certain extent, they're following the laws of what they're supposed to do. So why not go back to say government? But then again, government is people. So I just wanted to differentiate that. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, and you make a great point, because, in my opinion, people can use this. And I tend to go with my teenagers with this. Is people tend to use the evil corporation as a way to go against capitalism,
It's an easy out. It's just a
right?
blanket statement. It's an easy
And
out.
and okay, so we're not worried about spoilers on this book. So I'll
Yeah.
tell you, towards the end, his answer is more government, and that's not the answer, in my opinion, because when you look at the history of, like, the food, the FDA, basically it's the fox watching the hen house.
Mhm.
A lot of the CEOs and corporate people of, Pfizer and all these other places, are now in the government as leaders, and so you have to take that for what it is. But so I disagree with his solution, but the reality, and there's also a difference in my world between corporatism and capitalism. And so part of the summary of the book is what this book is specifically about is they figured out how to manipulate the dopamine brain receptors to sell you everything.
Oh, and are they good at it?
Yes. Like the whole Budweiser thing is a perfect example of that. The whole TikTok, the YouTube shorts, Facebook, Facebook was found to be changing the biochemistry of the brain by, the dopamine hit of when someone likes your post. They've tapped into that, and that's how they can get in there and manipulate. For those of you on Facebook, your Facebook ads are probably pretty close to things that you're thinking, things that you're searching, things that rile you up or calm you
Talking
down.
about
Yep.
right.
If I do a search for a holster, or if I do a search for, an office chair, all of a sudden you've got a ton of ads for those two particular things. And then every now and then the Facebook algorithm, like, oh, this guy likes Iron Maiden, and him and his wife are talking about puzzles. Here's an Iron Maiden puzzle, and it kind
Yeah.
of, and then there's plenty of examples of that. And so if you watch TV for an hour, you'll see nothing but ads for fast food and prescription drugs. And so sugar is kind of like the obvious one. Like in the mid 70s, they came out with high fructose corn syrup. We didn't have that in our system. It's literally crack to the brain. And so they manipulate, the emotions. Like Coke's got this like around Christmas time, they got the polar bears. It's cute, reminds you of your
Hmm.
childhood. That's how they sell you the 2-liter bottle of Coke that you don't really need.
And this
And
isn't just speculation. They're saying, oh, this is what they do. He goes into the science of it all,
right.
like the
Yep.
detailed science of exactly how this manipulates your brain and your feelings, and then poses the question: okay, are obese people um, eating more or high sugary foods to which changes their feelings, makes them sad, or are they sad because they're eating the high sugary foods? And it lays out the case that the latter is more likely true.
Hmm.
That it's you're not binge eating and eating all these foods to because you're sad. You're sad because you're eating all these foods and taking part in these things.
Yeah, and he goes into a lot of studies that they did with psychedelics, and studies with people using marijuana, and other substances. And so basically, there's a lot of chapters where he talks about these studies and why the brain does what it does, and what triggered him. I read an interview with him. What triggered this whole thing was he was talking to an ex-heroin addict, and she had said something about happiness. And so basically, and that just kind of triggered a few things. And so people mistake pleasure for happiness.
It's that we've been trained and become accustomed to very, very short periods of satisfaction and happiness and an endorphin rush. And it seems that mostly we can only be happy now due to an endorphin rush, not just, an overall general happiness. So we're constantly looking for these things that trigger the next endorphin rush.
Hmm.
And the most convenient, readily accessible thing is sugar, social media, and they get into a lot of different things in this book. It's not just sugar is the root of all problems. It's constant scrolling on the phones. It's addicted. We're heavily addicted to cell phones.
Yeah,
Um, and
yeah.
all of
The
these things.
things listed was sugar, caffeine, alcohol, nicotine, illicit drugs, legal narcotics, social media, gambling, and pornography. Were listed in those dopamine receptors, and then, but here's the thing: it's not all doom and gloom. He does talk about ways to counteract that, by finding the serotonin, which is your happiness. There's a difference between pleasure and happiness, and a lot of people have got that mixed up. And that's part of the problem is you can't differentiate the two. People are like, "Oh, eating that cake was just happiness." No, that was a pleasure.
You just
Afterwards, you're
stimulated some receptors.
right, exactly. And so the reality of the situation, and this is the crown of the book here, is that the medical industry is a $4 trillion industry, and 75% of that $4 trillion is made off of metabolic and chronic diseases from the things that we listed earlier. And it's the causes of, it's affecting obesity, your metabolic syndrome, cognitive ability. Addictions are on the rise, depression's on the rise, and it's literally tearing this whole country apart.
Yeah, he
And
gave a
if
statistic about the number of deaths, or what do they call morbidity events in the United
Mhm.
States? How many of them related to basically comes back to sugar over consumption of sugar, and it wasn't like 30 some percent. It was an enormous percent.
Right. And when you look at diabetes, 65% of the country is either diabetic or pre-diabetic.
Wow.
And think about how much money that is, though. Think of it from a profit standpoint, and how they just need to continue that. It's like, here in Missouri, they've legalized weed. And we were visiting some relatives in Oklahoma, and they've legalized it for recreational there. And there's a weed clinic on every single corner. Like we counted, like within a 2-mile radius, there was like 15 or 20 um, clinics. Just these little tiny hole in the wall in the strip mall, and they want you basically sedated, fat, happy. You know, your cognitives are just enough to get you to work and back. And in the healthcare crisis, that was the thing that he brought up in the book, is that the problem is that the younger people that would replenish the healthcare system for Social Security are getting sick now. So there's been this extra strain on Medicaid and Medicare, and Social Security, that and disability, that it's not going to be replenished. So we're on this path, we're on this spiral of the system collapsing because of this way of selling you things.
Yeah.
And that's those are the notes I took. It's straining the U.S. healthcare system. Everybody talked about, everybody talks about the insurance companies and all that, and they figured out how to make money on all ends, right? From the minute you're a baby, you're getting that soy formula, to the cancer drugs when you're 50, 60,
Hmm.
70 years old. And the food causes the drugs causes, your ailments are never solved, right? And one of the things I'm learning with this fasting thing is that they've because of all these elements, they're able to just make us, sick all the time.
Sick is normal. To feel shitty all the time is normal now.
Yeah. So, and until you clean up, you don't realize how sick you are. And you don't realize how much is affecting you, and I know so many people our age and older that are on so many different medications. They need cortisol. That's the other thing you talked about was the cortisol
Yes.
disruption. Circadian rhythms are messed up. And think about if we're going to bring trucking into this for a minute. So truck drivers don't sleep right, so that your circadian rhythms are jacked up with the foods that we're eating, and the caffeine intake that we take. Your circadian rhythms screwed up. You're not eating the right things, and so therefore we're constantly in this state of sickness. Go to any truck show and you'll see that there are a lot of people that are not healthy, and they're getting stricter and stricter with the CDL.
Yeah, we're
Medical.
walking time bombs. The human body wants nothing more than to maintain a regular schedule of this is what time I go to bed and this is what time I get up.
Yeah.
And just that alone, and then you add in the food that we're eating, and it's all highly processed, mostly highly processed sugar, high carbohydrate, you know, blah blah
Seed
blah,
oils. Yeah.
seed oils, because it's got to sit on a shelf for how many years before it gets sold. Um, it's just every single, and then we don't get that activity, which is hard on your heart and your system. It's just it's hard to counteract that as a truck driver.
Yeah, it is, because like when I first went on a fasting regimen driving, I noticed that the smell of breakfast in the morning inside the truck stop would trigger me to eat something.
Hmm.
I went a full year and a half without any McDonald's whatsoever. I used to be a McDonald's like every morning if I could type driver, and I went a year and a half without even touching a McDonald's, and just talking about McDonald's would make my mouth water even a year and a half later.
Yeah,
You know,
I haven't eaten McDonald's in some time, and then a couple weeks ago I went into McDonald's because it was the only thing within walking distance, and
mhm,
I got a double quarter pounder with cheese, and the smell of the meat was repulsive.
mhm,
It didn't smell like any meat I've ever, and it wasn't that it was rotten or bad. It's just like this is not what meat smells like.
right,
But you get desensitized to that over time, and you get used to it, and it probably
mhm,
actually becomes something that draws you into it more.
mhm. Well, this isn't in the book, but there was that show that guy did, where he ate McDonald's for 30 days,
Yeah.
and there was a point where he was eating it, and he would throw it up, but then he craved it an hour and a half later. Now I don't know about you, but if a food makes me throw up, you never want it again.
No. Like
And
tequila. Ugh.
right? So so the book gets into the biochemistry of why these things are happening, how they're doing it. And he does come up with some solutions towards the end, which are kind of cool, besides the, we need more government kind of thing. Um he talks about the 4 C's: connect, contribute, cope, and cook. And so he goes over like how we can counteract, how we can like raise our serotonin, which is your happiness receptor, and then get rid of the dopamine cycle that causes us depression, causes us to overeat, causes us to do things over and over without control. Ask anybody who's been on TikTok for an hour and a half.
Oh,
It's like you
jeez.
look up at you look up at the clock and you're like, where did that go?
Yeah.
And I've been guilty of that with YouTube Shorts.
Me
I
too.
have this routine in the morning where I sit and watch the Weather Channel, but I usually don't turn that on till 6. I got up at 4. I started watching YouTube Shorts. Next thing you know, my coffee's cold. I look up and it's 6 o'clock. Time to wake my wife up. I'm like, how did that happen?
See, I'm bad on the other. Mine is the worst time is while you're laying in bed trying to fall asleep. That's the worst time to be on your phone.
Hmm.
Your eyes need to get away from that light. And then, I wonder, sometimes is that why I'm not sleeping well? I'm sure it has something to do with it. And then you're stimulating your mind in all these different ways just before you go into sleep and go for your dream state, and that's not great either.
Yeah, the blue light is really bad. It's recommended that 2 hours before you go to bed, don't be on your phone at all. And like there are times when I'm waiting for my wife to get to bed, and so I'll scroll through some like Instagram reels or YouTube shorts, and then when I'm laying down, maybe this might go on for 15 minutes. I'm laying down, I can hear my heart. I could feel my heart just beating. A lot of people don't realize that when you're watching, like during the George Floyd thing, I would watch these riots that were going on live on Facebook in the morning, and what it was doing, it was putting the flight
Stress,
or fight stress,
cortisol.
yeah, cortisol, and but nothing was happening. My street was fine, everything was fine, but the brain doesn't know the difference, and that's the thing that they've tapped into is our cortisol is all jacked up, our hormones are all jacked up. Being overweight is a hormonal imbalance, not a caloric imbalance. Because I know people that are lean and eat the right foods, that eat 3,000 calories a day, and they're fine. I know people that might eat 1,800, but it's all the wrong things, and they eat once a day, and they still get all messed up. So I noticed that when I laid off the coffee a little bit, that my sleep was better.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the things. So it gets basically in the science and the chemistry of how someone can be manipulated. We all seen those YouTubers, right? That get emotional, and we're able to trigger them with words, and then and it becomes basically you become a master of puppets, right? And that's they figured that out. They figured out that out with their ads, with their campaigns, with they, like, for example, I went and saw a movie last night that I haven't seen since I was a teenager called Rad. It was an old BMX movie. It came out in 1985. And the star of the movie, he was in another movie, Born on the 4th of July, but other than that, his acting career really hasn't taken off. But what he figured out was that guys like my age that saw that movie when it first came out are into this whole retro nostalgic thing. And so what he's done is he's tapped into that feeling of nostalgia, and he's selling books. He took the soundtrack of the movie and got rights to it, and now he's selling it on vinyl. He was selling those record vinyls for $80.
Wow.
And he was selling number plates for the bike, for $80. He was selling little ones for 30, and he was selling hats for 30. And people were just buying this up because they want to feel that nostalgia. They want to feel that emotion, and people don't realize how easily manipulated they are through their emotions.
But they've
And he
taught us to
gets
be
now
that way with food. We keep chasing that last, thing that made us happy. The last thing
Mhm.
that I ate that thing, it was so good, it made me so happy. You just want to keep going back to that. So it's everywhere.
Yeah, like birthday cake. Birthday cake brings you a good memory. Everybody's paying attention to you as a little kid, and you get this cool cake, and you're eating it, and so now they can sell you the birthday cake flavored Starbucks Frappuccino crap, because it makes because it
Sounds
taps into
delicious.
that feeling. Yep.
Yeah. So one thing in the book, going back to the food part, and I don't want to spend a
Mhm.
whole show on that, but that I'd heard about before, but I never really put it all together. So, and it ties in with the corporation thing, is talking about the government, and food additives, and
Mhm.
these thousands of chemicals. They are chemicals that they're not really approved in any kind of limited dosage. They're just kind of there. There's something that's called generally regarded as safe, or generally recognized as safe. Okay,
Mhm.
things like, well, it'd be like aspartame, right?
Mhm.
MSG. There's no real, this is safe for the average person up to 300 milligrams a day or whatever. It's just say, you guys figure it out, right? And they're legal
Mhm.
to use as food additives. They're in a gray area called generally recognized as safe. So chemicals are cheap, right? So then you take these thousands of food additives that can now be put into food, and you take, here we go back to the corporation thing, right? where you put a regulation on them that says their primary legal, lawful responsibility is to make the most amount of money they can for their shareholders. Now, that is their legal obligation. Now, people get mad at them for being greedy. Well, guess what? The government mandated they be greedy. So now you supply them with all these food additives that are dirt cheap. Do you not think they're going to put them in their food? You know, it's the marriage made in heaven. So then you get all these chemicals and additives put into your food, where we can take a pile of dirt and make it taste like grape soda, and for what, 2 cents a bottle? Yeah, of course we're going to do that. But it's we kind of let it happen though too. You know, um, that's something that we don't really think much about. Is all of these chemicals? They're not really all that tested. They just say, yeah, they're not going to hurt anybody. You guys figure out how much you want to use. Blah blah blah, and they're cheap. That's how we get them.
And they're designed for one thing and one thing only: to get you hooked.
Yeah, to provoke a response of saying, "Oh, that was good. I want more," or like an MSG of you eat Chinese food, you're hungry again an hour later. Everything's in there for a reason, and then you can take this food and put these additives in it and make it last a shelf life of 2 years, or whatever. Sugar. So one thing you covered in the book is all the ancillary uses of sugar besides making food taste better. It's a filler. It's a great filler. If you look at it's a great cheap filler. If you look at your Lucky Charms, the marshmallows are pure sugar, and they take up a lot of bulk in the packaging. When you cook it, it makes things turn brown. So it's a kind of an extra food coloring, and it gives it a very desirable texture and color. So there's a lot of uses for it.
Yeah, and just like let's say you go to a Chinese place that says they don't use MSG. Well, they're using cornstarch in a lot of the sauces. That triggers a chemical response in the brain and in the mouth to make you eat more. That's why starchy foods are so bad, because that's why French fries are so good, right? Because they're cooked in the right oil, they have the right starch, they have the right amount of salt, but they're addictive enough that you can't eat just one, like Lay's potato chips, right? That's a chemical response. And so what the book is tapping into is there's a brain response in there as well.
Right.
And so it's all kind of working in uniform, in unison, I guess is a better term. And so it really kind of makes you think, the book is kind of depressing because it makes you realize, wow, I've been
had.
I've been
I've been
had.
manipulated. I've been, as strong as I think I am, or as hard as I'm trying. Some bitches still got me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, so if you're sitting there thinking that, oh, I can't lose weight, I'm having trouble being healthy, I'm having trouble putting that phone down, that's on purpose. It's not your willpower. It's not. You have so many cards stacked against you. So whenever I put something down for a while, or this fasting thing, or the keto or carnivore thing, it's a form of rebellion. And then if you go into community, if you find, what we're desiring is happiness, right? And you got to figure out what makes you happy and what is just a pleasure receptor. Like a good walk in the woods, or fishing out on the lake. That's happiness. That's your
Right.
serotonin.
If it lasts more than 5 minutes, it's happiness. It's just you didn't just go stimulate a receptor and release some endorphins because you ate a Big Mac. It's got to last.
Right. So the good part about the book is it brings awareness. We're going to do the good, bad, and the ugly. It brings awareness to what's really going on. And there's like one chapter where it really gets into the numbers and science, and you can even skip over that chapter if you want. But the idea of that chapter is to kind of show you how in depth this science is. The bad part of the book is towards the end there's the politics, and instead of blaming the right people or the corporatist, he's blaming capitalism, which is not true. Capitalism gives a platform for corporatism, but we all know that we're more of a corporatist country than anything else. And then he calls for more government regulations on these things. And I'm here to tell you that, you know, between the food companies and big pharma, government is a part of that.
Well, it's what got us here in the first place.
Yeah. And so and so the ugly is that this reality will set in of how many things are stacked against you. And it's almost depressing when you walk into a grocery store and you're thinking, man, this is all, when you walk into a grocery store, you watch TV, this is all designed to sell you things. You know, back in the 50s and 60s, they had reports, you know, people using subliminal advertising, and they had weird reports of a woman that bought, you know, 50 cases of laundry detergent, or, you know, someone bought like, you know, 2,000 ties, or someone had their addiction to bowling balls, you know, that kind of thing. You know, and they find out that the company was using subliminal messaging to create that situation. So they decided, well, we got to go against subliminal messaging. They've managed to accomplish that without, and it's blatant in your face.
It's not subliminal anymore. It's right in front of your face with
Right.
every time you pick up one of these damn things. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
that's okay. So that's something I want to talk about a little bit. You know, moving on from the food thing, and then
Sure.
talking about the bad parts of the book, or not the bad part of the book, but some things he points out is it's easy to understand and see how they got us with the food. They just
Mm-hmm.
put stuff in it, right?
Yeah.
You may not know what's there, but you can figure it out. Everything else with the marketing, and especially the social media and the different apps, they got us every bit as bad as they got us with the food.
Mm-hmm.
These algorithms know more about you than you know about yourself, whether
Mm-hmm.
you like to admit it or not. They probably know what you're going to do. They know what you're going to do tomorrow before you do. Um, I don't like that part, and I resisted it for a long time. I still do. You know, I buy everything with cash as much as I can. Although it seems like that's going to be a problem here shortly. And you know, my own little, you know, protests or rebellions. You know, like you said, rebellions. Uh, but you know, having to use the phones and the computers for work now, it's harder and harder to resist, or to get anything done. Like you slowly find yourself waning in those resistances. At least I have a little bit, and I don't like it. I don't. I don't feel like I consent to it. Obviously, I don't need my consent for most things, but I when you really look into it, they got a grip on us every bit as much as they do with the food.
I agree with that. So here's so when you go, so here's what I suggest for some people is to go 30 days without something. Now, you're a carrier owner, I'm a safety manager, so I can't just like put my phone in another room.
Right.
I've always got to have at least my business phone. Now, my personal phone I can put away. So, if you look at the Netflix show Social Dilemma, one of the suggestions from the guy that used to work at Google said eliminate your notifications.
Yeah, that's a
You
good
know,
start because they can't
or,
pull you away from things that you're focusing on. It ruins your focus.
yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm reading a book, and hey, Mark, and all of a sudden I'm like a chapter. You know, my mind's no longer wandering. You know, and I'm getting into it, and all of a sudden, ding! Oh, I got to check this email. And so what I suggest, if you have a TikTok thing, or if you have a Facebook thing, or if you have a Twitter thing, go without it for 30 days, and you'll notice just how many times you go to pick up that phone blankly, you know, just
It's
blindly.
like Pavlov's dog. You know, when
Hmm.
they teach the dog, oh, when this bell rings, you get to eat dinner. Well, see if you catch yourself doing that. When your phone dings with a notification, do you immediately start grabbing for that phone to see what it was, or can you say, I'll check it in 10 minutes? It's a
Right.
good mental exercise. Don't let them tell you when you're going to check it. You check it on your own terms.
And then, like, when I went 30 days without coffee, I found that the caffeine aspect wasn't a big deal because I was still drinking green tea, but what I found is I still like hot liquid, like especially in the wintertime in the morning. And so replacing coffee with green tea worked. Now I was still getting caffeine, so I wasn't like getting the lack of caffeine headaches that people get. But what I found was now I was sleeping better. And so, just like when I would do these 24-hour fast on the road, what was triggering me to eat? Well, one of the things that would trigger me to eat would be sitting at a dock. Boredom. I was a
Boredom.
boredom, you know. And so going without something, you realize just how much of a hold it has on you. And these sciences are designed for you to never dive into that, and never figure out how much of a hold that they have on you.
Absolutely. It's just click here. No, click over here. Nah, click here. Watch this. you know, look how uh, something he was very specific about in the book is looking at social media like Facebook, and how looking at other people's appearance of happiness, how badly that affects you.
Hmm.
Um, Other people look to be always so happy, and you end up wanting their life and their happiness. And oh, this person is on a trip to Hawaii. Look how happy they are. Now I have to go to Hawaii. Or um, this person's kids, blah blah blah. Everybody always has a better life than you.
Hmm.
Everybody appears so happy. So that what does that do to you? Does that make you depressed and sad, or you know how does it affect you?
Yeah, you have toxic positivity. You have these self-help gurus that give you these motivational speeches, and all it does is it can really just depress you. It's like, well, I'll never live up to those standards. I'll never be able to go to Switzerland. I'll never be able to have abs like that. So I'll just
Yeah,
become depressed and look at these cat videos, that kind of thing.
good, good way to spend it. Cats make you happy. Cat videos make everybody happy.
Yeah, that's a proven fact, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks to everybody in the chat. I'm not ignoring you. We're just trying to have a conversation. We'll take comments here in a little bit. Um, I put the link to Snorelord's channel in the chat. Put the link to the book in the chat. Also, there's the link to Snorelord's channel. Definitely check it out. Um, so what did we miss so far? Um, it's the paradox of, are these things, are you sad because of this, that you do these things, or do you do these things because you're sad? Where do you think you fall on that?
that's a good question. And if you notice in the book, there were several chapters that ended with, or paragraphs also that ended with, they don't know what's correlation and what's causation. Like that was always the fuzzy line. And to me, that's why I go on these fasts. Not just with food, but with all different things, because you figure out. Like, I noticed that my depression went lower when I cleaned up my diet. I noticed that my mind was clearer. I noticed that I was more willing to get up and get stuff done when I didn't feel like crap. I noticed that I saved money, by not buying all the stuff. And I think that's part of this cashless system they want to create, is like, it's easier to kind of go over your credit limit when you're not paying attention. It's like
Oh
now
yeah, absolutely.
now banks charge you extra if you want an actual physical paper settlement. You know,
Yeah.
and so it's easy to swipe the card and buy that $6 cup of coffee you don't really need, that's got 10 tons of sugar, because it makes you feel good. You know.
Well, and to a different point, and not to go off on this topic, but it does kind of apply to the things, some of the things in the book of what you said. Um, so some people say, "Oh, well, I don't see the problem with a cashless society. We need to get rid of cash." Blah blah blah. I say that you lose cash, you lose everything. Um, well, what do you think? Somebody's going to be sitting there clicking a button saying what you can and cannot buy? No, it'll be far worse than that. It'll be an algorithm, or
Hmm.
somebody's preset set of standards based on whatever they profile you fit, your social score, whatever. And if suddenly by those algorithms, they will see your buying habits and what makes you happy, what you like, what you don't like. And if you've not been a good boy and your social score wanes or whatever, we can just trigger it to turn off, and you can't buy any more of these things.
Hmm.
So no individual person will tell you what you can and can't have. More likely, a computer or AI will do it. And that's
Right.
just what I want is AI running my life. And you lose a certain amount of freedom.
A lot of freedom.
Well, yeah, pretty much all
Yeah.
of it. Pretty much all of it.
I mean, there's an alarm that rings whenever someone takes a lot of cash out for some reason.
Hmm.
There's so it's just it starts with the mind, and what it's done is it's made our country unhealthy, both physically, mentally, and financially. The same. Like everybody think, okay, let's look at what's that? Um, Candy Crush. You think it's an innocent game, right?
Oh no!
You know,
If it's
it,
free, then you are the product.
exactly. And so what happens is the same dopamine receptors that makes you play something like, Candy Crush is the same dopamine receptors that gets you to hit the button on the slot machines.
Hmm.
It's the same receptor that
Impulse buy.
impulse buy. Same thing that goes like, I don't know, do you order a lot of stuff from Amazon?
Next to nothing.
Okay. What I have found is I'll go in spurts, right? I don't buy like every single thing from Amazon, but like if I buy a book, which I've done that in the last couple of months, what else should I get? I want to save on shipping. What else can I get?
Yeah, I'm so close.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it
And
says here, right? Other people that bought this book, they like these other things. Maybe I would like them too.
exactly. And then next thing you know, my Facebook and Instagram ads are like, oh, look at this book, look at this book, look at this album. And oh, we saw that you were at a movie last night with 80s stuff. Here's other 80s movie memorabilia that you can purchase, and so there's a chemical reaction to that, and that's essentially what this book breaks down is the science of how this is happening and how it's literally destroying the health and well-being of this country. It's going to bankrupt our healthcare system.
Hmm.
Like literally, and when they tear down this system, and it's going to get to the point, and this is not in the book, but it's going to get to the point where people are going to be begging for the system to be torn down. And guess what? When they rebuild it, it's not going to be in your favor.
No, no. But then you got to wonder, will they beg for it to be torn down? Because people are loving their Facebook, they're loving their TikTok, and they people live now virtual online existences. In their what's that? R- um, the reality, the goggles,
Oh,
the
AI, the
AI.
alternate reality,
Yeah,
AR, yeah,
people live in those realms now.
VR, yeah,
Yeah, virtual reality. There you go.
virtual reality, yeah.
Um, we'll stand here and let our freedoms be eroded and everything else, but I don't think people will stand to have their social medias taken away. And you know,
Well, I think it's interesting that in China, they have a limit on TikTok, and it's only like stuff that's like martial arts or doing your homework or things that help make your life easier, not the cutesy
no cat
addictive
videos.
stuff. Yeah, no cat videos. Like, and there's a purpose to that, because you literally have people that are so oblivious to everything, they don't realize they're being manipulated and controlled, and it's like they're
It,
waxed over.
well, a lot of people don't care as long as they have their shiny trinkets and a little bit of
Yeah.
money in their pocket. I tell you
Yep.
what, if we were in the same situation and we were all poor and didn't have, all of our fancy things had to go away, people would then care, but it would be too late.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So the author, I would say, obviously biased. I think it takes a little while to come out,
Hmm.
or towards the end of the book, for his bias and politics to come out. But I would say, for the most part, for the purpose of the book and through the whole book, I would say fair.
Mm-hmm.
I would say he's fair about the science, anyways.
Yeah,
Didn't
I agree with that. Go ahead. Sorry.
didn't blame anything on global warming or any Bigfoot or anything like that. He's pretty much stuck to the science, assuming that he's quoting the science, right?
Right. Yeah. There's no wokeism. I don't think with this.
No.
Um. And look, if you guys don't read the book, just look up Dr. Robert Lustig on YouTube, and there's a bunch of people that have talked about this book. There's a bunch of people that he's done a lot of talking seminars, basically pointing a lot of these things out, and and it really it should open your eyes on just how you're the product, you're the experiment, you're the rat in the cage.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself wanting to buy something and you have no idea why, figure that out. If you're having trouble, like, I know that Popeyes is bad for me, or I know this donut's bad for me, but I can't help myself. There's a reason for that, and that should alarm you in and of itself.
One thing that I do, it's intentional that I do it this way. People give me hell. My buddy Cash gives me hell about it all the time. Is number one, I like to pay things with cash or write a check.
Hmm.
But then if I'm going to buy it online, I don't do that thing where I save my credit card or save my payment method or save my shipping address,
Right.
because it's just too easy to just order it, click, click, click. Right? You can be so impulsive. If I have to take some time and put all that information in and put my card number in, I start to think, $40. That's a lot of money. Do I really want to spend $40 on this thing? And
Hmm.
more times than not, by the time I'm done going through that, I've talked myself out of buying it. I'm not a big buyer of things. I
Right.
pretty much have most of the things I want. And but I can see, like, I know people that have Amazon packages showing up to their house every day of the week, sometimes multiple times a day. Um,
Yep.
and most of it is just nonsense. Like, oh, this is cute. Oh, that's cute. Well, just because something's cute doesn't mean you got to have it.
Well, fear
Um,
is a big factor too. Oh, there's
yeah,
going to be a shortage of this and a shortage of that. People. I went into an ammo store one time and they were charging $80 for a box of 50 9mm, and I'm like, okay, oh, it's a big shortage, a big shortage, a big shortage, and fear, 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 and the news was reflecting that, and people, so, and that was a small mom and pop store that was doing that. So think of what the big corporations are doing.
yeah,
Like look at all these like prepper YouTube channels, like, oh, how to survive a nuclear war. Yeah, step one, you don't.
yeah, exactly,
you know,
exactly.
you don't need to go out and buy 3 years worth of food and a backpack
Yeah,
that can haul everything and 15
yeah,
AR-15s, because guess
and,
what, you're just going to be a loot stop if you even survive.
yeah. And chances are you'll come out of your bunker, and that ain't a world you want to live in, anyways. And guess
Right.
what? Dying slowly of radiation poison, I guarantee you, is worse than dying instantly from a nuclear blast.
But it sells clicks.
Yeah, it does.
It makes you feel like you're progressing. It makes you feel better about yourself. It makes you
Yeah,
feel better about things, and that's what they're tapping into.
yeah. If you look all around, he talks a lot about the ways they manipulate us, and another thing that comes to mind is they just make stuff up. They'll totally make up a word or a concept. So one example of that is, and this started years ago, and somebody in my family started saying it all the time, and it drove me absolutely nuts. Is the term pre-buy? Like, oh, these tickets or this album is not out yet, but if I go online, I can pre-buy it. No, there's no such thing. You can't buy it before you buy it. You can order it so that when it is out, it gets shipped to you.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not pre-buy. It's a term they make up to make it. Oh, you're getting ultra exclusive, you know, access to this thing that's so big everybody wants it. You better pre-buy it so you can have it. No, you either buy it or you order it and you get it when it comes out.
Right.
This is no such thing.
Uh, and they go like, oh, you better get it before your neighbor does, that kind
Yeah,
of thing. Yeah, there's a lot of words that we've been gaslighted with, like the term climate change. Think about that phrase. The climate's always changing.
Happens every day.
Just like assault rifle. Well, this bottle could be an assault bottle if I put it in the right place on somebody, right?
With the hands of a well-trained professional.
Right. So,
You could charge twice as much for that if it was.
and the more that you understand the science of the brain, the more they tap into that, the less control you actually have. Now, let me see if I can find his 4 C's here.
A lot of people in the house here. Thanks for coming in. Not ignoring you. Jersey Trucker, Adam Bennett. Who we got here?
And I think we can, after I mention this, I think we ought to get into the comments because I think there's a few people. I know Shannon, I know Greg have read this. So, okay, so what's the solution? So first one is connect. And connection through religion, social support, conversation. In other words, you're on the subway, talk to people. You're at a you're at a place, talk to people. Have human connection. Talk. It's like what was the last time? Like for example, you and I, we've had dinner a couple of times. Were our phones in our hand? No, we just had great conversation. We weren't thinking about what was going on. We were having a great conversation.
We're a different generation that wasn't born into that though too.
Right. And so it becomes difficult, especially the younger you get. How many times have you been to a restaurant and the whole family's got their
younger people can't sit across the table from each other and talk to each other. They text each other. I've seen it. Like I've experienced that. I'm like, what are you doing? The person's sitting right there. You wingnut.
Yep. The next one is contribute. This helps you acquire self-worth, volunteering, philanthropy. So like your whole the little cold plunge you did, that's a great example of bringing happiness.
So at the end of the book, he talks about charity
Mm-hmm.
and giving of yourself and how much it really changes you. In most of my life, I didn't really do that. Up to maybe 5-6 years ago, I guess we start. And really, who brought me to doing that is my wife. She's very involved in volunteers, and it absolutely does change you in more ways than one. So he talks about that at the end of the book, how significant it is to be involved and be charitable.
Yeah, like I remember one time I was going into the pilot, and there was one of the beggars right there, and I had just had the crappiest day, and I just kind of looked at this dude with my death metal stare and said, "Don't even think about it." He just kind of put his hands up, and I just walked on. And after a while, I felt bad about that, because who knows, right? So there was another opportunity where I was at the pilot, or no, Flying J there in Tulsa, and same thing. This dude came up, and I just like, dude, I don't have any money. And as I was in the truck stop, I'm sitting there. I thought, you know what? Everybody can use a bottle of water. I don't care if he's a shyster. Who knows, right? Maybe that 1 ounce of kindness will make him think, maybe I'm being an ass. Maybe I can rise above this, right? So I handed him some water and I think a beef stick, something like that. And I said, here you go. Rise above this. You can do this. And then I walked off. And I felt so much better than the other time where I just kind of gave that guy the death metal stare, like, don't even come near me, kind of a thing.
Mm.
And so there's definitely some truth to that. The next C is cope. Sleep, mindfulness, and exercise. When was the last time, mindfulness, people say you should eat mindfully. Like, don't be sitting in front of the TV or watching Netflix. Actually just enjoy the meal.
Yeah, I am terrible at that.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Straight up tell you, I'm rarely any kind of mindful when I'm eating. It's just when I'm on the road or when I'm working, it's eat so I can get back to work. Right? It's just shovel it in. And when I'm home, it's like, might as well watch TV while I'm doing this.
Yeah, we're bad about that too. And then, and like how many of you take a shower and your mind's wandering? I've gotten some of my best video ideas while in the shower. but just being mindful, being in the moment, that's what a good walk will do. That's what good exercise will do. You're not thinking about things that you need to worry about. You're just like, oh wow, look at that bird, look at that tree, look at that deer that I could shoot next fall, that kind of thing. And just being in the moment. And then the last, is that all the C's? There's one more. Cook your own food, take control, cook for your friends, cook for your family.
Not only because of then you're eating better food, but it's you're socializing. You're you're talking to people. You're coming together over one thing. So none of these things are really exclusive. A lot of them always kind of go together.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
Yeah, excellent. Let me jump back here and go through the comments here. I was kind of putting them on the screen. Mark M in the house, thanks coming in. Jerome Jones, Gary Bates said I couldn't get the book, so you're gonna listen to the audiobook. Yeah. And listen to us. Okay. This Truck and Life, thanks for coming in. Grafton, how you doing? George Wilson, are we truck talk today or book review? Today is just a book review. We gotta have a break from trucking now and then. You just have to.
Yep.
Because something in the book about that is cortisol, just nonstop stress. You got to refocus your mind on something. You should try to do it every day. Getting out for a walk really does that.
Yeah, that's why I've been trying to go live on the small channel, the Snorelord OG channel, and it's just a walk. I'm just out and about, and we're not talking about trucking. I mean, it'll come up every now and then, but I'm not like going into detail about low boards and crap like that. We're just out for a walk, and here's my random thoughts. Good distraction.
Yep. Adam Bennett says everyone's going live today. All we need is Velox 18 to give us an update. Yeah, we haven't heard from him in a while. SST in the house. Thanks for coming in. He says story time. Yeah, everybody. We put in there again. Link to Snorelord's channel. Definitely go over there and check it out and subscribe for some good trucking stuff. Where did I leave off? Ponzi Zombie Killer says Beyond Brainwashed. Yeah, I think, isn't there a book called that also?
Probably.
So yeah, we need to talk about our next book too. GH Doctor Howlin' with the Wind, I think is what that is. All right. SST, I know it's a book report. I enjoy these because I quit bouncing ideas off people decades ago from books I've read. Intellectual isolation inside the truck can seriously affect you. Yeah, and we're no scholars here. The last one we did, I got like a 3-page comment from a guy going really in depth about the Fahrenheit 451 book, and I'm like, hey, I appreciate it, but like we're obviously on different levels here. But everybody takes something away from books. Cash is King in the house, channel member. Kevin M, hope everyone's having a good one. Yeah, you too. Buck Brown in the house, got my chips and salsa ready to go. Adam Bennett says best intro ever. I'm gonna try an outro today too. How about that? A different one.
Fancy.
Different. Yeah, we're trying to get fancy here. There we go. Shannon Thomas. Good evening from Obetz, Ohio. All right. Beer country. All right. The link to the book, if you want to check it out on Amazon. SST says high fructose corn syrup is a crime against humanity and a complete waste of corn. I'll be honest with you. Like it takes. Do you know how much water it takes to make high fructose corn syrup? And just an insane. I read it one time. I'm probably way off, but I'm gonna say it was just an astonishing amount, like 500 gallons of water or something, to make a gallon of high fructose corn syrup. Don't quote me on that. I'm making that up, but the point is, it's just an astonishing amount of water, and what a waste.
Yeah, and the government subsidizes. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, and then we end up using corn as fuel. I mean, it's food. Well, not people food. It should be like cow food and animal food, and then we're supposed to eat them. But really, cows aren't really even supposed to eat corn. They're ruminants. If you turn a cow loose in the corn, think about this. If you turned a cow loose in the cornfield, it would stand there like, what am I supposed to do with this? you put them loose in a hayfield. They eat grasses. They don't eat corn in nature. So it's being forced on them too.
Well, think about this. If you feed grain to cows so they can fatten them up,
get more money.
Well, what does that do to the humans then?
Mm.
What's that doing to your animals?
Makes a tasty cut of beef is what it does.
Makes the humans. Well, anyways, we get
Yeah.
back to the comments.
Adam Bennett says eats corn fructose every day to help keep him strong. And with it, a pack of Pall Mall Red 100s. That's the breakfast of champions right there, Adam Bennett. Ponzi says fascist government. Don't get me wrong, I grew up on that. It just wrecks your metabolism. It does. It raises heck with your metabolism. It does. This tour life says, yo, I smoke a cigarette before I drink a Coke. Yeah, you got to wonder over a period of time, which is worse, cigarettes or Coke?
I used to haul hazmat, and when you haul syrup for diet cola products, 2 placards. Not
Imagine
one,
corrosive is probably
but
one.
2. Yep.
What's the other one?
2 different levels of corrosive, I believe. So
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Adam Bennett loves drugs, but prescription drugs. Okay. He'll smoke a cigarette while drinking a Coke. Damn it. Jersey
Adam's
Chuck
a
in the house.
rebel.
He is. He's hardcore. There's no doubt about that. Go buy a Coca-Cola and get some Dapper Dan hair gel. Sounds like you're a man of constant sorrow, Adam Bennett. Ratlat laid down his library had the book. Okay. 100%. Look what's going on in our culture now. Pronouns, genders, making yourself handicapped. The world's going crazy. It is. It is. I had Friday night. My wife and I went out to dinner with somebody she used to work with, and he's 92 or 93, but the dude is sharp as a tack. Like he would make us look bad. He's that sharp. Hasn't lost a beat. Accountant his whole life, just sharp as a stick. And I looked at him. I says, what would back in 75 years ago, if you came home and told your dad, I think I might be a girl, what would he have done? He was like, he'd have beat my ass. It's plain and simple. Or come home with a tattoo, as a 14-year-old, or pierce your ear, whatever. Granted, different time, but we're in a very different world now. But it's all part of an agenda, the greater agenda. And then you have to wonder, all right, all these different things, and I'm not calling any of the things you just talked about, I'm not calling them a mental illness. In fact, I'm going to take it off the screen. But you have 60-some% of the females in this country are on antidepressant. And there's antipsychotics are rampant. How much of this could be due to what we're eating?
Oh, a lot. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, a lot.
I agree. And it's that's just two drug classes. You got cholesterol, you got blood pressure. It just goes on and on and on. And you got drugs for like neuropathy and nephropathy and heart conditions, and it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
And probably most of it is due to what we're eating, and then lack of exercise, whatever. None of your business in the house. Good evening, everyone. Not checking in from the recliner this time, checking in from the loading rack in Mansfield, Louisiana. Ooh, picking up some oil or fuel. And if they don't succeed, Janet Yellen will just write them billion-dollar checks. Yeah. Well, people get upset about welfare in this country. Corporate welfare is far, far bigger.
Mm-hmm.
There's way more corporate welfare that goes on than personal welfare. Our country, the USA, is the only country in the world that allows food additives. Do you know that to be for sure, Snorelord? I don't know for a fact if that's. I know most don't have the level of food additives we have.
So it's a 2 thing. It's a double thing, right? So there are a lot of food additives that are legal here, but not in Europe.
Okay.
And there's also the stuff that we spray on a lot of our corn, a lot of our plants, glyphosate.
Yes.
And that's a big part of it too. So there are reports of people that live in France or Spain, or somewhere in Europe, where they come over here as foreign exchange students. They gain like 30, 40 pounds, and they didn't change their diet. They're still eating the same stuff they did overseas. Then when they go back home, their weight goes back to normal.
Hmm.
There's a lot of those reports. So yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. Because the people that regulate those chemicals are the ones that own the chemicals. They're the ones that are, again, a really good documentary for people to watch is it's called Food Inc.
I've seen that.
INC. Yeah, and
Monsanto.
it talks towards the end. There's that farmer that talks about how everything works in unison with everything else. And he's got like blades of grass, and he tells you exactly what they're. I mean, this dude's like smart as hell. But when you disrupt it with corporate farming, it gets it all jacked up. Just like uh, grain finished. I mean, they'll put anything in these grain finished animals. And look what it's doing to our animals. Look at dogs, cats have cancer, and they're overweight. I mean, when was the last time you saw an overweight wolf or an overweight lion?
Right.
Because they're not eating grains. You got people that are literally trying to put their cats on a plant-based only diet, and then they wonder why the cats are dying.
It's mental illness to try it.
Exactly.
I don't know. Dave says Morgan Spurlock supersized me, if I remember right. Yeah, that's the one where the dude ate McDonald's, right?
Yep.
Thank the FDA. Yeah, Jackknife TV. The problem is the FDA is turned more towards science and whether the food is edible than whether or not it will kill you in the long term. Yes. Yes. Dee Dee McGee in the house. There's Greg Zimmer. Just stepped in myself. Happy this book is getting attention. I know he just finished the book.
Yep.
750,000 will buy you heart healthy to put on anything.
That's absolutely true. So
I'm
when
not
you
sure.
see heart healthy emblem on your Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, all they had to do was pay a certain amount of money to put them on the list.
Yeah, and going back to that text you sent me that one day where some dietetic association was making the case that eating Lucky Charms for breakfast was better for you than eating eggs.
Mm-hmm.
They literally had the food pyramid set up to where, and the specific case was Lucky Charms was more healthy than eggs.
Yep.
That's somebody that we are supposed to take seriously, a so-called scientist. We all know instinctively that's not right. MSG is not advisable to ingest if you are a truck driver. Yeah,
Yep.
for anybody. My name is Nobody's in the house. Oh, Dee Dee McGee joined as a member. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Shannon says it's a strong preservative, which makes everything have a longer shelf life. Also, yeah. So she posted that when we were talking about sugar. So yeah, sugar does make things last longer. Also,
Yeah.
I eat chop suey, but I get a horrible headache after eating it. Yeah, that would probably be the MSG, if I had to guess. None of your business says I'm sitting here listening and eating my Ritz crackers, which are banned in other countries. Why are Ritz crackers banned in other countries? I don't know about this.
I haven't heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Aren't they all like 100% trans fat or something like that?
Something like
I
that.
thought trans was good now. Thought we were supposed to accept that. We just had a terrible instance of somebody that did something in Wisconsin here in a junior high. I'll tell you about it later, but anybody could look it up, see what happened in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. Corporate America has raped us of our health. Well, it's not just corporate America; it's in conjunction with your very own government.
Mm-hmm.
What is happy? Way too subjective. Well, that's you're right. That's for each person to decide. But we have to know what it's key to know what happiness is not.
Right. What's the difference between?
It's not a 3-second endorphin rush from a Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
Right.
Jojo McBookster, the whole country needs to strike, show deep state who's the boss. They can't do anything without the workers. Well, it's a catch-22. We do that, we collapse everything, which we all may think we're prepared for that, but we can't possibly think about all the different scenarios. And like Steve said, when it comes time to rebuild, it's not going to be the way we want it to be.
Nope.
We don't have the people with the insight of that our founding fathers did.
Right.
SSD, it got to the point where I couldn't drive my shift without having to make an unplanned stop to, to blow ass daily. It simply wasn't sustainable for me anymore. Ooh, gotta stay off that McDonald's. Um, Shannon says they got dang screens with videos at the gas pumps now. Yeah.
Yep.
So I was watching a thing this morning. People are really starting to talk about the Walmart self checkout lines.
Hmm.
And this one lady, she works there, and she said that not only are there it's just an enormous amount of cameras on those things, but they have cameras that see inside of your wallet and will take pictures of your ID
Wow.
inside your wallet.
Huh.
That is crazy because they're building cases of shoplifting against people. All this time they've just let people go and take things and not pursue them or prosecute them, but they've been storing the data. And this person is claiming that they are going to pursue it now, which
Wow.
you'll catch me standing in the corner in a string bikini before you catch me in a self checkout line. I refuse to use a self checkout. I
That's
despise it.
that's getting harder and harder to do.
Yeah.
Aldi's just put them in, and they still have one register open that you're allowed to use cash, but like even the self checkouts at Aldi's, you can't even use cash anymore. Like at least Walmart gives the option to use cash.
Hmm.
And so that's becoming harder and harder. In Japan, I believe they have a system where you scan it as you put it in your basket, and so it automatically takes from that point. And I believe that'll probably be the next step to eliminate some shoplifting. But
Yeah. Shannon says they start with the formula, then the schools. That's a very good point. They got to our young people. They got to our young people a long time ago.
yeah,
And now we're here where we are. And eventually we become the minority. And that's just the way it is.
mhm.
If we don't work hard on our young people to open their eyes, we're doomed.
Yep.
DD McGee says just because everyone is watching you is no reason to be paranoid. It's not paranoia though. It's not
No.
paranoia. It's real. And also depends where your belief system lies. You can look at it in a lot of different ways. Jojo says 5 more years going off the grid in the woods. Well, cool, awesome, good for you. I hope you got 5 years. It's not looking good for us, is it? Hot water and on tap and occasional climate control are the only reason I participate in this social contract. That's a couple good reasons. Had a nice delivery to a construction company in the woods next to a nice stream. Can't remember the last time I spent the night in the woods. Tell you what, that's the best way to do it is just spend some time in nature.
Yep.
Good to hear some logic and not propaganda. We try, but we're not, like I said, we're not professional scholars here. We're just a couple guys reading some books. Straw purchasing black markets. Negotiation will be extinct. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Trying to ban cars and trucks who are no longer mobile. They're doing it. Definitely doing it. Brother Craig says hitting the like button is free. It is. DD McGee, would I like to add some green to my collection of red? Got some swag here in Ohio for sale. I got some green in my red. You've just never seen it. I got an Oliver and I got a John Deere. Both green. I'm not looking to add any more currently. Thank you. We were more connected before we got so connected. That is absolutely true. The more connected we get, the more disconnected we are. So we don't interact in any meaningful ways. So we got to talk about our next book here before we lose everybody. What do you propose? I say we change genres again.
Yeah. So this is a book that if we're gonna go back to trucking for a minute, let me share the screen here. This is my idea. I mean, you could say, Steve, that's dumb. Don't ever suggest something like that again.
Steve, that's dumb. What do we got?
This one right here. So let me click on this one. This is something that a friend of mine bought. It might be interesting.
Never split
unless you
the
want to
difference.
go into the
Negotiating
unless you want
as
to go
if
into
your life
fictional
depended on
realm.
it. No, I like this. This is pertinent. I think this is something that would be good for people right now. It would be good for me.
So
have you read this book? Have you finished it?
I haven't finished it. I'm about 10, 20 pages into it. So I mean, I've got the physical book here.
Okay. So let me get a link to that so I can put it in the chat. Never split the difference. The book is called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I'll put a link here. So if you just want to look at it, you can buy it wherever you want to buy it. Link here, copy. All right. I just put a link in the chat here. Check that out. Yeah, let's do that because right now, obviously most people that are listening are in trucking and we need some education along this line. So it'd be good. It would be a good brush up for me too. Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is coming from a person who's been in sales for 15 years, and he said this was a good book. So I did the introduction, and it was kind of captivating because the guy used to be an FBI negotiator.
Yeah, let me read the synopsis here. It says a former international hostage negotiator for the FBI offers a new field-tested approach to high-stakes negotiations, whether in the boardroom or at home. After a stint policing the rough streets of Kansas City, Missouri, Chris Voss joined the FBI, where his career as a hostage negotiator brought him face to face with a range of criminals, including bank robbers and terrorists. Reaching the pinnacle of his profession, he became the FBI's lead international kidnapping negotiator. Never Split the Difference takes you inside the world of high-stakes negotiations and into Voss's head, revealing the skills that helped him and colleagues succeed where it mattered most in saving lives. In this practical guide, he shares the 9 effective principles, counterintuitive tactics, and strategies you too can use to become more persuasive in both your professional and personal life. Yes, absolutely. I think we all need that right now.
There you go. I'm glad you dig the idea.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's stupid. Don't ever suggest that again, but we'll do it. Just kidding. I'm kidding, of course. Yeah, so we're going to do that. When my links show up here in the chat, I don't think it worked. Can you see it?
Yeah, I see the link.
There it is.
Click on it.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and if yeah, we'll do that. What do you got there?
Yeah, it's working. The link is working.
Okay. All right. Well, anything else we want to talk about this book?
Like I said, if you like numbers, if you like some of the geeky stuff, the book's not as hard as a listen. Because even though I have the physical book, I listened to it first. I just bought it for reference. My wife read it. It just really shows, my YouTube channel is about kind of giving a different perspective on things, looking outside of the box. And this book definitely will do that. And it'll make you question why you might make decisions, and especially where you're struggling. There's a lot of people that bought trucks last year out of emotion, out of that desire, out of that dream, and they're really suffering right now. And once you figure out how many things are stacked against you and you're aware of it, now you can start accomplishing change. I think Shannon said it. Let me find that comment. You can blame anyone you want, but the key to change is to look in the mirror and start taking control of your own life, which is the most precious gift. And so, I mean, there's a battle for our souls right now.
I'm glad you said that. You're absolutely right. This is way bigger than food. This is way bigger than Facebook. Mm-hmm. This is a battle for us.
Yeah. And go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and once you recognize the battle you're in, now you can make change. Now you can, because if you want to change the world, you got to start with yourself. And if you're able to put down the phone and not react to the YouTube drama or the Facebook things and not binge buy things on Amazon, the more control you have over yourself and recognizing everything that's against you, then you can fight. Now you can take control, and somewhere in there will be the serotonin. Somewhere in there will be the happiness that you're looking for.
Yeah. Don't expose yourself to these things that will these things and people that'll steal your happiness.
Right.
Or contentment, whatever. Doesn't matter. And if something is free, you are the product. Facebook is free because you are the product.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
TikTok is free because they're selling you, your information.
Right.
Or selling to you.
Yep.
But, all right. Well, we'll cut her off here. We're about an hour and a half. I think that's sufficient.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. These are always fun. There's a lot of people that call me up and say, "When are you and Adam doing another book report?"
Yeah, I'm bad about getting them done. So I did the audiobook. You actually read the book. The audiobook, it was hard. There was a good stretch there where I didn't want to turn it back on and continue because it was for a while it was hard to get through. But just get through it. It comes full circle in the end, and you move on to other things. But I think what he tries to do is lay out all the information first so you understand what he's talking about later on in the book.
If anything, find some summaries on YouTube. I can put a link to one right now. Let me do that.
Okay.
It's an 8-minute long video that will summarize pretty much everything that we've talked about.
Probably way better than we did, probably.
Right. Well, and just type in the author's name on searches, and you'll get some, like, hour and a half long lectures that will kind of like, oh wow. And if you want to dive, that's what I did. I found an hour long lecture that just blew my mind but made a lot of sense, and I decided to buy the book. So
okay. All right, just a reminder, next one is going to be on a book called Never Split the Difference. It's a book about negotiating by Chris Voss. Link in the chat if you need to find it on Amazon. Otherwise, we'll try to be a little more timely with the next one. We got a little far apart on this one, trying to do it like once a month. So this one was my fault. I didn't get the book done.
Yeah, well, I've been struggling with that too. Here, let me put the link in here. There, everybody check out that video. That will help. But yeah, I mean, look, the hacking of the American mind, I did the Audible on that. My Audible subscription ran out. I haven't purchased a new year yet, and I'm still getting through all the books. Right now I'm getting through a book about fasting that I downloaded last year. I do a lot of chores around the house where I can listen to audio books, but then I also have a lot of physical books. I have this in the physical book, so who knows how long it'll take me. So I wouldn't worry about the time frame. But it's good to do it once a month because it keeps it fresh, and
yeah.
So
if anybody wants to gift Steve a membership to Audible, then we could he would have no reason. He couldn't sit here and make all these excuses.
There you go.
All right. I'm going to try this outro thing and see if I can get it to work. Everybody take care. We'll see you next time.
All right.
DIY semi. If you have a truck coming, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but a truck ain't one.